Hi, I'm Diamond Fairies. Welcome to Hindsight Film Festival. We are here to talk about another documentary called Stalking the Big Cat of Georgia. And we got a director and producer. How did you direct this film?
Well, I read a great book, a biography written by Jerry Grillo. We both do Georgia stories, and this is one of those Georgia stories that nobody knows about.
I'm a baseball historian, and I'm happy to introduce this film, Stalking the Big Cat. Johnny Big Cat Mize from North Georgia was one of Major League Baseball's top sluggers during its golden age. In this documentary, you meet the people keeping his legacy alive, as well as meet his all-star counterpart in the Negro Leagues, James Red Moore of the Atlanta Black Crackers. In Stalking the Big Cat, the filmmakers go behind the scenes to see what North Georgia author Jerry Grillo discovered about Hall-of-Famer Johnny Mize while writing his biography. One of the celebrated hitters in baseball's golden age, Mize was born and raised in tiny Demarest, Georgia, in the southern Appalachians, where he returned to live out his later years. Mize spent 15 seasons slugging for the Cardinals, the New York Giants, and finally with the New York Yankees, who won a record 5 straight World Series with Mize as their ace in the hole, the best pinch hitter in baseball. After retiring from baseball, Mize then spent 28 years waiting for an invite from baseball's Hall of Fame before he was finally inducted in 1981. Grillo's 20-year writing journey is a story in itself. He raised a family within 20 miles of Mize's home and took a 20-year break from writing the book to help care for his son. During that time, more resources became available online, and Grillo learned something about Mize that few people know, and now you are about to learn as well. The barnstorming element of Johnny Mize's career is really fascinating to me. His interaction with Martin Dihigo and all of the players in those countries in Central America where he was able to play winter ball. I'm curious about two things related to that part of the documentary. One, his son mentions a little bit about, the evolution of his prejudice. And I was curious if during the course of the filmmaking, whether he talked a little bit more about that didn't make it in the film, or anything like that. And then second, just fascinated by Red Moore and how that part came about to be part of the documentary.
The evolution of.
Well, he mentions that growing up, he had this natural prejudice as a Southerner, but as he grew up and he became a Christian later on, yeah.
First of all, I will say, this movie, you were like the perfect person for this film. If I had to think about who's going to enjoy this film, who's been collecting Johnny Mize cards since he was a kid, who's got this interest in barnstorming and Negro Leagues. So I want to thank you for, and being in Savannah and being here, I want to thank you for all that. His son, I will say his stepson, had a very difficult relationship with Johnny Mize. And we talked about that, and of course I didn't make it into the film. He learned a lot about his stepfather by the book, and we were able to talk about that. The open-mindedness was Jerry Grillo's discovery, because no Southern newspaper is going to talk about a local Southern boy who's playing with black players. So that's totally left out of the press. So it was Jerry's discovery to go down the internet, holes to find out that he had this career, or the sideline, not a career. And the barnstorming was a part of that. And we wanted to highlight the fact that the Negro Leagues, the quality of the play was, on the same level as the Major Leagues. And I had met James Red Moore back in the 2000s. My son did the interview with him. I traveled around with him a little bit. And it didn't occur to me at the beginning of the film that James Red Moore should be a part of it, but it did, because Jerry didn't write about Red Moore. I brought that in, and it turned out that Jerry had seen him, met him. He influenced him to think more about the Negro Leagues. And I felt like I just owed it to his memory and to Greg White, who's keeping that memory alive, to bring that into the Mize story. And I hope it's not confusing to an audience to be involved with the Mize story, and all of a sudden we've gone this way to the Moore story. But I had to do it. I had to do it as.
Well, no, and I thought it added just amazing context to the entire story of Mize as he goes through not just this evolution in baseball as you go from the 1930s to the 1950s, and you go from segregated baseball to integrated baseball, but you have pre and post World War II, and I think Red is a fascinating character because you see his career in the Negro Leagues sidelined by World War II as well. So I think it's just really contextually well done. And also, I don't know if you want to show off, I brought autographs. I don't know if you want to show off your autograph.
I have a Red Moore ball cap that he signed for me, and I've gotten a lot of use out of it all the years. It's not in a museum. I take it with me. I love it. And he was such a nice man, outgoing. I wish I had met Mize alive. I didn't. Red Moore was able to talk to my son, who was a high school baseball player, and he gave him this word of advice, which I love. He said, "Remember that everybody on the field is your friend, not your enemy." And I wish a lot. I don't think Ty Cobb probably felt that way. Red Moore did.
I'm always curious about baseball nicknames, and I know you guys touch on this in the film. I think I'm like Jerry. I'm a bit cynical when it comes to nicknames. I tend to believe that they're usually given in some sort of nefarious way, and then the narrative is crafted afterwards. There's a great player who I discovered collecting cards, who I always thought his name was Kiki Keeler. And it was K-I-K-I and then C-U-Y-L-E-R. He played in the 1930s. And it turns out that his last name was pronounced Kyler, and he had a stutter. And so when he would come onto the field, they would say, who are you? He'd say, I'm Kyler. And then the players would make fun of him. And so that was a nickname that he had carried with him throughout his playing career because of his stutter. And I learned that much later. So I'm just curious about your thoughts about the Big Cat. I know there's kind of a couple different ideas that floated in the film about why he has that nickname, and I wasn't sure if you had any extra thoughts on it or not.
When I came across the interview these were high school students interviewing him for Foxfire magazine, and when I heard Johnny's version of the story, I thought I needed to put that in because I think he might be right. When he was young and agile, and we saw him running early on. The guy was fast for a 6'2", 6'3" man, about 210. It's pretty good foot speed.
Yeah, that newsreel footage showed him coming around first base.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So yeah, when he was young, I think he might have looked like a big cat. His face to me sometimes he's got that big cat face. But when he got older, yeah, I'm sure he looked like a big lazy cat in the sun. And the sports writers, he didn't have a great relationship with sports writers. I think they made fun of that a lot as he got older. The big cat, the lazy big cat.
And then just one last question for you, because I really love the scene where Jerry is kind of getting a little lost on the way to Johnny Mize's house, and just curious if there's any other interesting scene that kind of didn't make it, or just a story from the production side of things that kind of were similarly.
Well, I will say I'm glad you laughed at the telephone call with Mr. Woods where he said he was dead, and after I called him back, and he apologized so profusely because he thought I was a friend playing a joke on him. And he said, "I'm so embarrassed I did that." And I said, "That is so great. I hope you don't mind if I use it in the film." And he said, "Yeah, go ahead." He said I was going to make, it was his first Hollywood starring role. He was going to make Cary Grant. And then he dies like 6 months before I finished the film, which was sad, but in a way it's a tribute to him. And some of the local people are very proud that he's in it. I wanted to show Jerry getting lost because you got to bring humor into these things. And maybe it discounts his credibility as a local, kind of a know-it-all guy, which I kind of like, make him seem a little vulnerable there, getting lost in the neighborhood, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it also just, really told about his, he's got such a dedication and passion, it almost felt like an absent-minded professor kind of moment, so. And
can I add one thing? The artist who he goes to visit, who's done the Atlanta airport, the other things, she's the subject of our next documentary, a full-length documentary about her artwork and her complete total obsession to Elvis Presley, which I think is just going to blow people's mind. And so I hope I can come here next year with that film, actually.
Well, that's a great way to end it. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thank you for the film.